Good afternoon. This is the regular Parks and Rec Commission meeting, calling it to order December 15th, 2010 at 4 p.m. And please rise for the pledge. Ready to pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McGill, would you call roll, please?
Chair Wiscombe.
Here.
Larimore Hall.
Here.
Burns. Here. K-Spear.
Here.
Ferrara.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Longstreet.
Here.
Intern Torres Santos.
Here.
Great. Thanks, Ms. McGill. Ms. Rapp, any changes to the agenda?
No, Chair Wiscombe.
Okay, and no written communications, correct?
Correct.
Okay, public comment. Any member of the public may address the Commission for up to 1 minute on any subject within the jurisdiction of the Commission that is not scheduled for public discussion before the Commission. Is there anyone here for public comment? Okay, we're closing public comment and moving on to community service recognition.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, we have two items. One we'll do at this point, and we also have a recognition for our outgoing youth intern to the Commission. So we'll do that presentation just prior to his Youth Council report. Susan Young, with our Neighborhood and Outreach Services section, is going to oversee this presentation. She has a number of people that will be part of the presentation, so I will defer to her.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. As part of the Neighborhood and Outreach Services, we're so privileged that we are able to use volunteer services. As you know, the whole idea behind our program is to outreach to those who are not able to maybe do some of the things that they would like to do, and so it really helps our department if we do have volunteers. And so to make the presentation for the first volunteer, I'd like to turn your attention to Pete Leva, who is our outreach coordinator in Neighborhood Outreach Services.
Thank you, Susan. Mrs. Rapp, Commissioners. Thank you, Susan, Nancy Rapp, and Commissioners. It's nice to see all the Commissioners and everybody here at one time. The lady that's been helping me here to my right in the pink, Susanna, she's an outstanding community volunteer. Each week, each month, again, Neighborhood and Outreach Services is there to assist those families in need within the neighborhood. Susanna's been instrumental in assisting me with our food distribution, outreach service information, services that we have festivals, various events in the community where I need assistance in providing information to those families that I don't know in the community. She's there when I need her. She'll call me, inform me of various situations within the neighborhood. She'll connect me to new families that I have not connected with, and she's been very instrumental in what we do in Neighborhood Outreach Services within the Parks and Recreation Department. So she is here today, and we're here to recognize her for her outstanding service.
Okay. Ms. Gonzalez, thank you so much for all you've done for the Lower West Side neighborhood. It makes a huge difference in our community, and on behalf of the Parks and Rec Department and the Commission, we truly appreciate it. And here's a certificate of appreciation for you. Thank you very much. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes.
Okay. Buenas tardes, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Susana y doy gracias por este certificado. Gracias. No solo el certificado, sino uno que es voluntario para la comunidad y lo voy a seguir haciendo desde ahora y para siempre. Dios les bendiga. Gracias.
Should just like to thank you again for this opportunity and for service and commitment again to giving to the community.
Congratulations, Susanna. And then next, we will have to present the next award will be Chloe Hunt, who's a member of the Santa Barbara Youth Council. And again, in order for the Youth Council to be able to do a lot of the programs that they do, we really depend on that of volunteers. And so Chloe will make these presentations.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. The Santa Barbara Youth Council really tries to work with the neighborhood and outreach services to develop and coordinate just great events for teens to engage and get them involved in our community, but this would not be possible without the gracious support of all of our community providers. So during the early part of 2010, we held a speak out to get people, asking questions about teen rights, like what rights and responsibilities do we have in the community. And then just recently in the last month, we held 4 workshops where we had 5 actually great community leaders here to just answer any questions and participate in the discussions around 4 topics: dating violence, drugs and alcohol, school regulations, and police traffic stops. And we had over 100 teens come to the event. It was a great success where people's hands were just going up, asking questions, and we had these amazing volunteers willing to come and take their time to answer our questions, so we would just like to recognize them. Here we have Tara Howland Ford, who helped with our dinner discussion of facilitating that. We have Christy Hayes, who ran the teen dating violence workshop. We have Officer Carl Kamin, who answered all questions about just rights related to police traffic stops and any other law enforcement. And then we had Melissa Wilkins, who answered any questions relating to drugs and alcohol. So we're here today to recognize their support for the Santa Barbara Youth Council and just teens in Santa Barbara as a whole.
While Chair Wiscombe is coming down, I want to add my thanks on behalf of the department. At last month's commission meeting, we actually complimented the Youth Council on the successfulness of that particular event and their speak-outs in general. I attended the event, and it was very impressive. And the youth work hard in pulling these things together. They show a lot of leadership, but it really takes people in the community, such as yourselves, to step up and to be a part of that. And we thank you for helping to get the word out to teens.
Madam Chair, we actually have one more that I apologize, I forgot to mention. Janice Rowick. She took all of our pictures and was just so instrumental in keeping the event going. So please, just a round of applause for her.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hunt. I just wanted to say, ensuring that the opinions, issues, and voices of our teens are heard and continue to be heard is really a top priority for this commission. And your service in this area is absolutely and positively appreciated. Without your help in these types of events, our teens wouldn't have these opportunities, and it's just great to see, and we all thank you very much. So I'd like to hand out the certificates. Tara Hasland Ford, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jorge Fulco, is Jorge here? No? Okay. Christy Haynes. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure I've got these in the right order. I think, yeah. Okay. Officer Carl Kamen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you mind if I say a few words?
Not at all. I was going to actually do that afterwards, but if you want to do it now, go right ahead.
I appreciate the recognition, and I'm going to assume that I'm speaking for everybody here aside from myself. But I think that the true heroes here are the people in the teen council, Chloe and everybody that she works with, because we're just doing what we do every day. But as a teenager and as a young adult, I'm sure that most people aren't as in tune with their community, both politically and socially. So I think you all deserve a pat in the back for getting everybody together that was able to attend the forums and get kind of a heads up on life with regards to the different topics that we talked about. So I think you all deserve a hand yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also I have to echo what Officer Kamen said. Our youth council, and in conjunction with neighborhood outreach services, has just done a phenomenal job. Really, really great, and we should commend them all on that. Janice Rorick. Thank you very much. And Melissa Williams. Thank you, Melissa. Okay, would anyone else like to speak?
I'd say just a quick.
You certainly may.
We'll see how long he lets me talk. But I just want to echo those same sentiments. It's been a pleasure getting to work with the Youth Council on a couple of different events now, and you guys are just a great group of people. It's been a pleasure. So thank you so much for all the hard work that you guys do and all of the effort that you put into making these events happen. It was a great event. Thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Good.
Having just retired from the city about 9 months ago now, is it, as the youth service director at the library, I couldn't keep my hands off the teens still. So Susan and I have worked together on different projects, and I just wanted to commend the Teen Council, too. I really enjoy just meeting and working with all these kids, too, and the things they do are great. And even the other things we've done for teens, the Teen Council that Susan and I are on, that works with 50 different agencies to do things for teens, is a great thing in this community. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. I think we should give a big round of applause to all the recipients of the certificates, and also to our youth council and to our neighborhood outreach services. Thank you very much. Okay. We will move on here to Commissioner Committee assignment reports. Let me start down here. Anyone have any committee reports? Ms. Jacobson?
I attended our youth council's meeting on December 13th, and they were all wearing the shirts they're wearing this evening. It was really awesome to see that. I want to also just say what an honor it is to be your liaison, because every time I get a chance to be with you, you just amaze me at what you're doing and you're teaching me as I go along. So I greatly appreciate that. I wanted to just congratulate two of the youth members won awards. Morgan Lunt won Goleta Teen of the Year, which I think is just absolutely amazing. And Carolyn, also on the Youth Council, won first runner-up. And they're both on our Youth Council. I just think that says so much about our youth. Let's see what else I have here. On Thursday at 6 p.m., the kids are going to be going down to the West Side Community Center and helping out serving food and giving out gifts. I'm going to also participate in that, and I would like to invite anyone else who'd like to participate in that to join us at 6 p.m. on Thursday at the West Side Community Center. And I believe that Diego's going to have something to say too, correct? So I'm going to leave the rest to him, and I thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jacobson. Anyone else here? Ms. Longstreet.
I would just like to say that the Park Foundation put out its annual appeal. I guess it was in November, mid-November, and we really hope that everyone who received a letter responds. And if you didn't receive a letter, we hope you'll contact us online and respond that way. So the Park Foundation is doing great work to support Parks and Recreation in Santa Barbara.
There you go. And it just keeps happening. Thank you. Couldn't have arranged that better.
Mr. Burns.
That's a hard act to follow. I'm not going to attempt it. The Multi-Jurisdictional Front Country Trails Task Force met December 1st. We are working on the budget for next year. We've got the first meeting, I think, in March. And the groups are getting together trying to do some trail maintenance and management. So things are going well.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Burns. Okay. Mr. Ferrara. Yes. Sorry.
Thank you. Chair, I was at the Integrated Pest Management Advisory Committee. It was the first one I attended on Monday, this last Monday. And what we, it's a great group of people. I really enjoyed and learned quite a bit there, especially about termites, which I didn't know before. But we had three issues that they talked about and made some decisions on, and one is to extend approval for the request for glyphosate at Parma Park. And the reasoning behind that is that it's to control invasive exotic pepper and olive trees and other invasive plants in that area, especially since the fire. This is really necessary. The other item was at the airport, where they had a request for Vicane, which is, I think, level 2, but it's what's considered a red insecticide, so they need to get special approval for that to take care of an invasion of drywood termites in 2 airport buildings right now, which was approved. And also request for another insecticide called Timbor. Well, they may use a different one, they're not sure yet, for drywood termites in all the city buildings. And those were the 3 items that were discussed on the agenda that day. And I really want to say I learned more than I ever knew before about, pest management. I'm really excited about it.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Ferrara. I attended the Street Tree Advisory Committee regular meeting on Thursday, December 2nd. Mr. Downey gave us a report on violations. There were 2 new violations reported. One is actually not in the jurisdiction of the Parks Department, but it relates to a landscape plan, so I think it goes back to community development. But and Mr. Downey also reported on the seminars that were held to present the new codes for the street trees and setback trees. And we actually had approximately 55 attendees at the 2 meetings, and greater than 50% were certified arborists. So the message is really getting out, and it's great to see. If anyone's missed it and wants to look at it, the PowerPoint presentation from the seminars is on the city's website. And one committee member actually suggested that realtors might be another group to target for education in sometime in the future, because they're, always out there in terms of private residences. So. And then we reviewed the applications and made our site visits for the trees on our agenda today. And that wraps up that. And if no one else has anything, we will move on to Commission and Staff Communications.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, just a reminder for you and for the public that city employees, the majority of them will be taking their unpaid furlough, part of their unpaid furlough, over the 2 holiday weeks. So most of our offices will close on Friday and reopen on January 3rd. However, we still have some facilities that will remain open to serve the public. We still have people who are reserving our facilities for their holiday events and activities, and those facilities will continue to operate. We have facilities that are recreation facilities. So, for instance, Los Baños Pool will continue to have hours. And also our park service and the golf course have split shifts so that they will not cease operations during those holiday times. They will just have reduced staff. So all of that information is available on the city's website. I encourage people to check the website if something comes up and you have a question and you want to know who to contact. So we are making every effort to make sure that people know who to contact if there's a problem. So, for instance, if there's a big rainstorm, windstorm, and trees are coming down, the city is still going to take your calls and respond immediately. So, but we will, for the most part, be closed for those 2 weeks of furlough.
Thank you, Ms. Rapp. Okay, we move on to the Youth Council report. But before we have our final report, we have a certificate for Diego. You've done a great job keeping us all informed. Your reports are thorough, they're accurate, they're complete. It's really amazing, the great job you've done. And you have contributed in matters before the Commission and really spoken on behalf of the youth. And your input on those items has really helped us when we've had to look at some hard decisions, particularly during budget times, etc. So no matter where the road takes you, we all know you're going to be successful, and we will all miss you. It's been great, and your smile is always welcome too, and we really appreciate it. Does anyone have anything else to say? I'm sure.
Yeah. I would just like to say, Diego, I've especially been impressed with how you've sunk your teeth into the budget, which is not an easy item. I mean, we've had a lot of youth interns, and all of them have been very good. I can't say we've ever had anybody who wasn't great. But I was really impressed with your dedication to the budget issues because past 2 years. So thank you so much, because I really appreciated your input. Not as simply a youth member, but as a full-on member here. You represent the young people in our community very well, but you also represent the community at large very well. So thank you so much, and I wish you the best. I expect to see you back in this arena in the future.
Yes, Mr. Farrar.
Yes, Diego, I didn't really get a chance to know you well because you were kind of moving on as I came into the commission, but I really want to congratulate you on your courage to apply for the position of city council. I'm guessing that you're probably the youngest person to ever do that for Santa Barbara. Now, I'm not sure, but that's a possibility. And with that courage, it just shows, and the rest of the courage of the youth council I see here, and in everything you do, this city stands in pretty good position of being very successful in the future. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Yes. Yes, Mr. Larimore Hall.
Thank you very much for your service, Diego. I think that often when people talk about young people and their service or their leadership, it's always like, oh, it's great, you're going to be a leader in the future, et cetera. And what your service and your dedication shows is that young people are leaders now. And I want to thank you because it makes this city and this community so much easier to govern when young people take time to be involved in the process. And we are better for it. All of the work of the Parks Department is better for it. The work of the city is better for it. The work of the Commission is better for it. Because we know that all young people have lots of other options of ways to spend their time than sitting in these meetings. So thank you very much.
Madam Chair, if I could add a couple
Yes.
of comments just before. I know Diego wants to make some comments, but Diego and I concur with the sentiment that we've always had outstanding youth interns, but I heartily agree with the observation that you actually got more involved and you really engaged in the issues. And I'll grant you, these were a couple of very difficult years with budget, but you put the time in to learn what you needed to learn. You had the courage to stand up and take a position, understanding, where the Commission was going and what they needed to do in the big picture. You still, in a way that allowed your message to be heard, brought the opinions and perspective of the youth, and I thought that you handled that very, very well. And I just want to say, this was a very interesting experience for the community with the 46 candidates applying for the council position piece. And I'll add Commissioner Case-Beer in here. For us to have 2 people who are serving with the Park and Recreation Commission submit for that position, I think says a lot about this commission and the people who serve on it. But for you in particularly, I really want you to know I had a lot of people who made a comment to me about how impressed they were with you as you spoke and how you spoke of your involvement in the community and what you do and what you would bring to the position. And you are, in that process, you were such a positive reflection of the involvement of youth in government for the city of Santa Barbara, and I just really want to thank you for that. You really did a tremendous job, and all of that aside, wish you the best in what you're going to do, and have really appreciated your contributions over the years. So thank you very much.
So Diego, before you get on to business and and comments, on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Department and the Park and Recreation Commission, we would like to present you with this certificate of appreciation.
Wow. I deeply just gotta thank everybody in my community. Definitely just very much thank the Parks and Rec Commission along to the staff. I've learned a lot being a part of this commission, and I've been able to develop a lot of my skills, public speaking, getting connected to my community. And I just found it honorable, and it's just a great opportunity. And I just can't wait to see the next person to be up here and be one of the next representative. And so it's just great to have a position up here, able to have a youth intern, to be involved with this certain issues of the budget, talking about the trees. But I just want to thank everybody, and I had a wonderful time being a part of the commission.
And because we always do this, can you please share with the commission what your plans are from here?
My plans on from here, I'm definitely going to be still connected to my community. This isn't going to be the last of it. Down the line, I'm going to go to school, possibly get my education in political science. Actually, excuse me, let me say that, definitely going to get my education in political science, and possibly someday be run for council.
Yes.
Just an addendum, I would strongly recommend that you at least consider sociology. And I say that from experience as a political science undergrad, but just keep your options open in terms of your major.
I was also a political science undergrad. So. Mr. Case-Beer, did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Diego, last Tuesday night, when this room was full, the 46 candidates made their interviews, presentations, and the mayor was very specific in her desire that people would not acknowledge the candidates. In other words, we weren't supposed to applaud anybody until Diego finished his comments. He really gripped the room. You had the attention of everybody in this room, and he got a standing ovation. It was the best thing of the whole. It was wonderful, and I'm very proud of you. I'm proud to have developed a friendship with you, and my door is always open to you, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Burns, did you have something?
Just, Diego, I was expecting you'd be singing something today, but that's okay. No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to know you and watch you learn and help us along the way. Thank you.
Do you have a report to give?
Yes, I do.
You don't.
Now for the final report.
We
Okay. This past weekend, representatives from the Santa Barbara Youth Council attended and participated in a Southern California Teen Coalition Winter Teen Board Exchange, which brought approximately 90 teens from various youth councils and teen advisory boards from the LA area. And it was a great honor for them. They got to also host a workshop, which they called PEER, which it stands for Pressure, Presenting Energetic, Enthusiastic Reasons to Peers to Participate in your events. And from the result of it, a lot of the youth there were actually happy to actually be a part of it. And I think it was one of the best workshops there. So I got the honor to actually participate and see them down in Anaheim. So it was a great experience for them to get share their experiences with other youth councils over there in the LA area. And then the Youth Council's Mentor and Health Subcommittee has been participating for the past several weeks as mentors in the AOK program. And that experience is very rewarding, and the Youth Council looks forward to continuing to assist them at other elementary schools as well. Just an announcement that they wanted me to put out there. They're now submitting applications for the 2011 Harriet Miller Youth Leader Scholarship Award, and that's for seniors. So that's out there for all the seniors that would like a scholarship opportunity, and that's a wonderful scholarship. And then lastly, as said before, we want to definitely just praise that 2 of our youth councils were finalists for the Goleta Teen of the Year Award, and Morgan Lunt was the one that won the Goleta Teen of the Year Award, and it was just an honor to have them win, and it's great that they were able to come from the Youth Council. And then lastly, I just want to say the Youth Council is here now, and so now it's a chance for you guys to actually meet the new 2011 Youth Council members, and so I'm going to go ahead and just leave it off with our chair, Pepe Gil.
My name is Pepe Gil, and I'm currently the chair of the Youth Council. And I'm here briefly just to say thank you first off for everyone here, especially to our liaisons, Commissioner Jacobson, and I also want to thank Commissioner Burns. Your attendance has been key in helping the Youth Council with different matters, and we really appreciate that members of the adult community are there as well and like to hear what we have to say. I've been on the Youth Council for almost all of my high school career, and it's been very rewarding working with these wonderful teens in the community and really, like Diego has mentioned, get in touch with my community, and it's been an awesome experience. And also, I want to recognize Caroline Green and Morgan Lunt, 2 finalists and the winner of the Goleta Teen of the Year, and thank ex-Youth Council member Diego Torres Santos for all his work that he's done, and it seems like he's done a great job here. And if no other Youth Council members have anything to say, then I think that. I'll just introduce each one of them. How about that? Okay, we have Annie Marogun. Then we have Brandy. Yeah. And then Chloe, sorry. Leslie. Stand up. Michael. Brandy. Blanca. Michael. And then Yvette. And then, of course, our wonderful Susan Young, who's always helped us a lot. So, yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say. And, again, thank all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Pepe, would you mind introducing yourself again? Because I forgot to turn on the mic when you started to speak. So
my name is
apologize.
Pepe Gil, Youth Council Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you all for all you do. And I think we should give a round of applause to Diego and to the Youth Council who's here. It's wonderful to see. Yes, you may.
I wanted to, something I'd written down, and I wanted to let everyone know, at that exchange that the kids did, they were told by the other councils there that they were they loved their enthusiastic and that they were very energetic, and that they loved what their council was doing, and that they wanted to take that back to their own council and implement that into there. And I think that is huge. So congratulations on that too.
That's a great compliment. It really is. So thank you very much. And thank you, Diego. Okay. We are moving on to the consent calendar and summary of council actions. Ms. Rapp, did you want to say anything about the...
Only to note that the council did approve the lease agreement, long-term lease agreement with Elings Park to take over the maintenance and operation of the Las Positas tennis facility. So that is now complete, and Elings Park is taking over all of the operation of the tennis facility. So we really appreciate them stepping up and assisting us through these difficult budgetary times, and look forward to continuing tennis programs for the public.
And that lease is 18 years with a 10-year extension
It's
possible?
18 years. It's coincided to line up with the overall lease for the park, so that at some point in the future they can combine it just into one lease. That's why it was so unusual.
Thank you, Ms. Rapp. Okay, approval of the minutes. Does anyone...
I move approval of the minutes for...
I'm sorry, 17th of
November 17th.
Yeah, 2010. Sorry, I should have said that.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No.
Abstain.
Okay, one abstention. Okay, great. We're done with consent. We move on to street tree advisory committee items, agenda item number 4, and this is A, the 300 block of West Ortega. Mr. Downing?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, old habits, I'm sorry. 300 block of Ortega Street. This commission has reviewed this project before. It's for the Ortega Bridge replacement. There are a number of trees that have been approved previously. I'm briefly going to go over those with you, and then explain why we're recommending the other ones. On the attached landscape plan, this is tree number 1 that has been previously approved. This is tree number 2 that was approved as a construction time decision, and it turns out that this tree will have to be removed as part of the construction. And this is tree number 3 that was previously approved. This is tree number 4. It was planted as part of the West Downtown Pedestrian Project after this commission reviewed this particular project. The tree will be impacted by the construction and should be removed. This is tree number 5. The applicant is proposing that this tree be used to replace tree number 1 that was required at the previous approval. And it needs to be removed at least temporarily for construction purposes. And this tree located behind the fence, sorry, it's the best picture I could get of it, but the city will own this property, and the tree then becomes a city tree. The installation of the bridge diversion walls will impact this tree heavily. The applicant is here if you have any questions about the project. The Street Tree Advisory Committee determined that due to the construction, these trees were necessary to remove. They would recommend that you approve the removals on the condition that rather than dig up and save the 2 small trees and try and keep them alive during construction, that go ahead and allow the removal. but require a minimum 15-gallon replacement that has a caliper of 1.5 inches. That's their recommendation to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Downey. Is anyone here for public comment on this item? Okay, seeing as there's no public comment, we will open it up to the commission for questions and discussion. Mr. Ferrara?
Yes, thank you, Chair Wiscombe. Mr. Downey, what will happen to under number 4, that small tree there, once it's dug up? Will it be moved to a different location, or what will happen with it? Curious.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Ferrara, the tree number 4 is proposed to be dug up and saved. The committee is recommending that rather than do that it just be allowed to be removed and replaced with a brand new tree that has a better size to it.
Okay, but the tree will be saved for some other location at some other time, or what will happen with it?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Ferrara, it's my opinion, and the Street Advisory Committee concurred that the tree isn't very savable. It likely will not survive transplant to a new location.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there other questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Longstreet?
Yes. First, I think it's too bad we put those two in on the West Beach to take them out for this. So I hope in the future we can coordinate that a little better. But I would also like to say how much I appreciate the improvements that have been made on Ortega Street, how much more walkable and nicer it is for the residents that walk downtown from the Lower West Side. It makes it a much better place, and this project will continue that and also improve the water quality at the creek. I'm looking at the extra planning where the home will be removed. So I am very appreciative of the improvements that are coming forward. I think that area of town, many people don't realize how many people walk the footbridge over. Every time I walk it, because I live over there, I see 10 or 12 people on the footbridge going to and from work, all ages, all modes of foot, bike, skateboard, you name it. So thank you very much for this. I really do appreciate these improvements.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. K-Spear.
Mr. Downey, I never considered myself a tree hugger until I ran into this oak tree. And, you know, it just pains me to see this 100-plus-year-old oak be, and I'm just quite sure that staff and the engineers that designed this project did everything humanly possible to save this tree, but it is not savable.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner K-Spear, the walls that must be put in to divert the water bisect all of the roots on one side of this tree, and the tree simply can't be saved because of its location and because of the required root pruning to put that wall in. It's unfortunate, I agree, but there aren't measures in this case that can be taken to save the tree.
Okay.
And the committee shared your sentiments on the tree. I mean, we all did, but I think it's the abutments too, isn't it? That are in the way.
I would make a motion that we concur with the recommendations of the Street Tree Advisory Committee for the 300 block of West Ortega Street.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Okay, so now we're going on to 1637 Loma Street. Mr. Downey?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, 1637 Loma Street is an Aleppo pine that is much smaller than it eventually will be if it is allowed to remain. It is located in a very small space, directly adjacent to the sidewalk and an adjoining driveway. The committee determined there was ample shade cover without the trees, and due to the size, potential size of the tree and the damage that it would inflict, they determined that it was appropriate to remove the tree. Their recommendation is approve the removal.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. No public comment on this item, so I'll open it up for discussion. Yes, Mr. Larimer Hall.
I just have a question. It jumped out at me that there's not a recommendation for a replacement. Why is that? Sorry.
Chair Westcomb and Commissioner Lerma Hall, the space simply doesn't allow for another tree to be placed there, and the committee determined with the other trees that were remaining there was sufficient shade in the area without a replacement tree.
Yes, Mr. Ferrara.
I noticed that this was requested by, and this is kind of to educate me too, by Arbor Services Incorporated. Who is Arbor Services Incorporated, and how do they fit into the request to have this tree removed?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Ferrara, the Arbor Services is a local tree care company that the owner has hired to do work on their property. One of the services they provide is to help people get through the city system in their approvals, so they applied on behalf of the owner. The municipal code does allow for anyone to apply for removal of any tree, and so it's within the municipal code to allow that.
Thank
yes.
you.
I would make a motion that we concur with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation at 1637 Loma Street.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Now we're moving on to 1704 Mission Ridge Road. Mr. Downey?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, 1704 Mission Ridge Road is located directly adjacent to Franceschi Park. The applicant is concerned that the dates and fronds from this palm tree drop onto his steep driveway and the roadway, and has concerns for safety. The committee looked at the tree and determined that the reasons didn't justify removal and recommend that it be denied.
Thank you very much. No public comment on this item, so we'll move on to open it up for questions and discussion. Anyone? No? Okay.
I'd make a motion. We concur with the Street Tree recommendation at 1704 Mission Ridge Road.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Great, and we're moving on to item 4D, approve the request to designate the following species to the street tree master plan, and this is Loma Street.
Chair
Mr.
Wiscombe and Commissioners, Loma Street currently has a combination of carob trees and Australian willows. The carob trees, as they die out, are leaving open spaces, and the current designation is the Australian willow. The Street Advisory Committee expressed an interest to designate a second tree within that location because in some situations the Australian willow may impede views more than a potential other tree. So they determined that the appropriate tree would be Tabebuia christotricha, golden trumpet tree, and the recommendation is to add that as an alternate species to Loma Street.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Downey. The only thing on attachment 4, it does say proposed change to Tabebuia as opposed to alternate species. So can we just make that clarification that this is an alternate. This is not a change in designation.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, the original request was to change the designation. The committee determined that they didn't want to change the designation. They wanted to add to it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Downing. I appreciate that. Okay. I will open it up for questions and discussion. Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation to add this street tree as suggested.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Any other?
Golden tulip. Yeah.
Golden trumpet tree. Yeah. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Great. So now we're moving on to the 300 block of West Calle Cesar Chavez. Mr. Downey?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, this request is in relation to an item you saw last month at 535 East Montecito Street. The project was proposing to remove trees on Calle Cesar Chavez. The current designated tree was Magnolia grandiflora, and a concern was raised that with the overhead power lines that they would be have to be topped in the future. The committee looked at the applicant's suggested trees. This was at the top of the applicant's request, and the committee determined that it would work well under the wires and in this current spacing. So therefore, the committee recommends the designation be changed to Magnolia grandiflora Samuel Summers Magnolia.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Downey. I'll open it up for discussion and questions. Anyone? Yes, Mr. Ferrara?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to concur with the Street Tree Advisory Committee's recommendation on Attachment 5.
Second. Okay. Yes, Mr. Burns?
Just for discussion, I thought that was very good that at the last meeting we actually let the approval go, so they are actually in construction on that property as of at least a week or so ago. So it's nice that we didn't get too bureaucratic and hung them up any longer than necessary. So.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the change and a second. And if there's no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Downey. We have no old business, so we move on to new business, and we are on to item number 5, which is advisory committee interviews and appointments for action. Just a reminder that the commission does not require incumbents to appear for an interview. So there are probably incumbents are, there is one here, yes, okay. At any rate, you're not required to appear, but so we have just limited interviews. And item 5A is conduct one interview and consider the applications of three incumbent applications and make the appointments to the Street Tree Advisory Committee. Okay. So, yes, Ms. Rapp.
Chair Longstreet and Commission, I thought it would be helpful just to share some information because you have the three incumbents that have reapplied. Carol Bornstein is a horticulturalist. Bob Cunningham is a landscape architect. And Mari Treeman is also a landscape architect. And then Sheridan Stanton, who is the applicant, she is a, did I say that right? She's a arborist. Did I get it? I'm sorry. He is a certified arborist. Do I have that correct? Yes. Yes. So I just wanted to then also let you know that the other two members of the Street Tree Advisory Committee, Karen Chrisman is a certified arborist, and Ricardo Castellanos is a landscape architect. So I mention that only because on the Street Tree Advisory Committee you do want to have some breadth. So again, the three incumbents, horticulturalists and two landscaped architects. Mr. Stanton is a certified arborist, and then currently serving, you have a certified arborist and a landscape architect. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. With the Street Tree Advisory Committee, it is one of those committees where you just need to every once in a while, when you're appointing people, revisit the demographics of the group. It's like our Integrated Pest Management Advisory Committee, same thing. You really just need to make sure you continue to have good balance. Resource.
We have, actually, Ms. Treeman she's actually a landscape designer. She has a landscape design firm. So just to recap, we have a horticulturist, we have two landscape architects, we have a certified arborist, we have a landscape designer. Did I mention that? And that's it. Yes. Okay. Okay. So 3 in the design profession, 1 an arborist, and 1 a horticulturalist. Okay.
Okay,
Mr.
good
Stanton.
afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sheridan Stanton. I'm an ISA board certified master arborist. I'm also a member of the American Society of Consulting Arborists. I've worked in Santa Barbara for the last 25 years for, I don't know if you remember Bill's Tree Care, but for many years for them, and then with Bartlett Tree Experts, now a consultant in private practice, semi-retired. So I've lived here for a long time. I've always enjoyed the urban forest, and I knew there was an opening to be an application on the board, and I thought it would be something I would be interested in doing. So,
Well, thank you very much for applying. We truly appreciate your willingness to serve. I will open it up for questions. And does anyone have any questions for Mr. Stanton? Yes, Mr. Ferrara?
Yes, Mr. Stanton. You have 2-year certificate, and you went through the horticulture up here in Santa Barbara City College?
Yeah, about 30 years ago.
Great. Okay. And what do you feel that you could bring to the Street Tree Advisory Committee that would be different than what's there now?
Well, I bring a certain level of expertise in that I have the certifications. I'm also certified to testify in court. That sort of thing. I've been involved in this from every aspect of tree, biology, physiology, just every aspect of tree care that there is. Just a very small part of what I've done over the years has been actual tree pruning. Most of it has been done a lot regarding development, tree root interface, incompatibility, things like that. Right now I'm working with the city of Carpinteria on a deal where they're running a pipeline through the middle of the city, and there's several trees in the way. So I've been doing it for quite a while.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And do you, Mr. Stanton, do you feel you'll be able to devote the time necessary? It's usually, well, with the exception of special meetings, and there are occasional special meetings, it's 1 day a month, and it's a good part of a morning.
Right. At this point I'm semi-retired, so I do have time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Stanton.
Thank you.
I appreciate your applying and your willingness to serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll open it up to the commission for discussion.
Just have a question, Chair. Was coming for clarification. Is this we have 3 community at large and 4 applicants? Is that correct?
Yes, we have 3 incumbents that have reapplied, and Mr. Stanton, who's a new application, and there's 3 vacancies.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
For me, I look at service as being a very important part of my decision-making process, and the 3 individuals that have previously served on the Street Tree Advisory Council, they've taken their time and they have the desire to re-up and renew their membership. And although Mr. Sheridan, I'm going to support the 3 incumbents, but I appreciate your application, and don't go away on us, because people move away, people's circumstances change, and before you know it, we may have an opening. And if it goes that way, that's just my own personal opinion.
Are you making a motion, or?
Is there any more public?
Yes, Mr. Farrar?
Yes, I appreciate that, what was just shared. I guess I should clarify how I feel about that, too. In any kind of situation, incumbency is really good because you get a lot of experience and all. But incumbents can continue to reapply for 20, 30, 40 years, and maybe just their passing away might change the, the look on that commission or board. So I think bringing fresh ideas and a fresh view to a committee at certain time when it's possible is a good idea, too.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Larimore Hall.
Yeah, so, I mean, to kind of split the difference between the last 2 comments, because I think that they're both very good points, and I think that we always should be aware, especially given that we have this rule that incumbents don't need to come and answer questions. We always need to be very careful about kind of sight unseen, just, rubber stamping continuation of the same cohort. But in this case, I mean, I've worked with at least a couple of the people who were on the committee when I was the liaison. Think they're great. I don't see any reason to sort of change horses at this point. But one of the things that Commissioner Case-Beer said that I think is important is one of the things about the incumbents in this case is that they, in addition to serving on the Street Tree Advisory Committee, they're also very active in other related activities and with related organizations and that also do work in the community around the urban forest and or the beautification of the city, et cetera. So there's another thing that I would add on to what Commissioner Case-Beer said to the applicant is that another way to distinguish yourself is sort of in the public service part of this work, is to volunteer and get active in some of those community organizations and so forth. And because in splitting the difference between people whose academic credentials or professional credentials seem totally equal, when we see that someone's volunteered in other capacities, that's often the sort of criteria that folks use to split the difference there. So so I would recommend, getting involved in some of these organizations like Santa Barbara Beautiful, et cetera, and because it's also another opportunity to serve and to put your expertise to work for the community.
Yeah, and I guess because I am the liaison for the Street Tree Advisory Committee, I know all 3 incumbents, and I agree incumbents should not be rubber stamped, but these are 3 very hardworking individuals with excellent qualifications, as Mr. Stanton has. But they do, because it's a group of 5 people on the committee, and there is a lot of give and take, and there's a lot of professional respect amongst the committee members, and I think that's very important. They listen to each other, and the committee works very well Yes,
Chair,
Mr. Casper.
I'd like to nominate Carol Bornstein, Bob Cunningham, and Maury Treeman as Street Tree Advisory Committee members.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay.
And I would like to also thank Mr. Stanton for applying and hope he will get involved in the committee.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm in favor with the group.
Mr. Stanton, thank you so much for applying, and I hope this doesn't discourage you from getting involved. You have great credentials. Thank you very much. Okay.
And Madam Chair, you
yes.
have somewhat the same situation with the Golf Advisory Committee. We actually had 5 applicants who had applied for the Golf Advisory Committee, and you have 1 incumbent, and actually you have 6. However, since your agenda packet went out, we've had several people withdraw their nomination at this time and their application at this time. So you have present tonight Jeff Hughes, who is the current incumbent, and the current chair, and he's the incumbent. And you also have Elaine Abercrombie, who is here as an applicant. So you have 1 community at large vacancy this particular discussion is the community at large position, and then we'll move on to the others.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry,
so we
thank you.
have 1 community at large vacancy, and we have 2 applicants. So I'd like to ask, is Ms. Abercrombie here? Okay. Would you mind stepping forward, please? Welcome.
Do you have a question for me?
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on the Golf Advisory Committee?
Great. Well, I've been in the community since 1983. I moved down, I came on vacation and I never left. I was one of those people that got to stay. I've served our community in the realtor world as the president of the association this past year. I've been a charter member of Executive Women's Golf Association since I think it was 94 or 96. Golfed several rounds, love the community golf course. I think it's very important to our community and our parks and recs.
Okay.
So if there's anything I can do to help, I'm happy to.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions for Ms. Abercrombie?
I do. Yes. Currently the golf course has had some struggles with the construction and now getting the rounds back up. Do you have any ideas? What do you bring to the Golf Advisory Committee in this area?
Thank you for asking. I don't have any right off the top of my head, but I've been very creative and helped our membership increase their participation with our MLS committee, so I'm sure I can be very creative in this arena as well.
Have you attended any of the Golf Advisory Committee meetings?
You know, I haven't. I don't believe I have.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Burns, did you have a question?
Just a comment. I've known Elaine for a while, and I respect what you've done in real estate. I haven't seen you play golf yet, so it's okay.
Maybe that's another story.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for applying. Okay. We have the incumbent, Jeff Hughes, here. Did you want to speak, Mr. Hughes? Welcome.
Madam Chair, board members, I'm just here to reapply for my position on the Golf Advisory Board, which is something I've been doing for, I think, 8 out of the last 10 years, I think is what it works out to be. And I love the job, and I like to help the golf course out. I always have. So that's about all I got to say. Any questions?
Okay.
Same questions I have.
Yeah.
What ideas do you have? How do you see this going with the?
We've had some interesting changes. I think that actually the last meeting we had some members bring up a little checklist, and I'm going to propose that we can change the agenda to where everybody brings a little checklist in from other people in the golfing community and see if there's anything we can discuss about. Maybe it might make the golf course better. The last time it was just painting the OB stakes on permanent markers instead of something that can be moved around. Simple idea. It hadn't been done before. So, just little things that can make the golf course a little nicer for everybody to play. So that's what we're trying to do.
But I'd like
Yes.
to follow up on
Yes, Mr. Case.
Mrs. Longstreet's question about promoting the golf course and how we can generate more people playing.
We have home clubs and the golf at the course, join the EWG and the men's club, women's club, Paisanos, and the golf course is ran by, I think it's run by like 4,000 people is where we get most of our rounds from. And if we can increase the home clubs themselves and get more participation out of just the home clubs, we can generate rounds like we used to in the old days. It's just golf course is getting harder and harder because of the golf course itself is getting older. So trees get closer together and fairways get tighter and rough gets deeper and it takes longer to play. So you get fewer people on the golf course. It's just a natural thing that happens to a golf course. You don't increase rounds later on in its life. They go down slightly, but with the economy and everything else, I think the golf course is on its way back from where it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I don't see a major problem out there at all right now, myself.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Hughes? Thank you very much for coming. Okay. And reapplying. We appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to open it up to the commission for discussion. Mr. Ferrara.
Mr. Hughes, your observation is new to me. I didn't know about the age of golf courses and that they change in that manner where you can actually get less space, or I guess you get maybe grooves like in a record or something like that. That's really interesting information. It's the first time I've heard about it. I've only been on the council here for a short time, this committee. But is there any way to, how do you deal with something like that, an aging golf course?
Well, yeah, this isn't on our agenda, so
Yeah, we can't.
Okay.
we can't really
Well, pretty sure I'd like to find out
discuss
something about
that. That's Mr. Hughes' opinion. So,
Right. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. That's all I wanted to do.
okay. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Burns?
I never know quite how to start, but I have a lot of respect for Elaine, yet I kind of see that we've got someone who's been a chair for 6 years, and we're kind of moving forward, moving along. I don't think we should switch. So while I do like Elaine, I think I'm going to be voting for Jeff, just as a comment.
Okay.
I have a concern, and that is, Mr. Hughes, that you said you don't see an issue out there. And I think we've seen our decline in rounds, and we know we've had some issues that we need to bring. I guess my concern is we have new management, basically. It's new to me. It's not that new, I understand. But we need to incorporate that energy, or get some energy in. And that did concern me when you said we don't have a problem out there, because it is great. But I do believe there's a certain point, and I was the liaison for a while, where some of the old school doesn't want to see changes. And some of those changes need to happen to increase our rounds, to bring in the new people. So I'm in a little bit of a dilemma, I'll tell you, on this one. So, because I am concerned about the overall health of the budget of the golf course as we go into the future. I know it's very cyclical with the popularity of golf, but it's a concern for me. So,
if I may just say, as the liaison for the, I get them both tonight, I guess, as a liaison for the Golf Advisory Committee, I share that concern when I hear that comment. I also think while home club participation is something that the committee is working very hard on improving and getting the numbers up for home club participation, I think that the golf course is at a time when there are other strategies, marketing strategies, other areas to explore, and which are being explored, that are critical to getting people not only from home clubs but from out of town that are staying at hotels, getting people back to the golf course. And these are all an increasing rounds in a lot of different directions. And this is a business. And I think the marketing efforts that the committee has made are very commendable, but I also believe they need to be continued. And that means putting feelers out in a lot of directions and thinking outside the box. Yes, Mr. Larimore Hall.
I mean, this is all great information, and it sounds very convincing that there's work that needs to be done to increase the patronage at the golf course. But what worries me, just as a process issue in terms of making these appointments, is that we have two applicants. They come up, they talk for 30 seconds, and then we ask them a question like, "Well, what are you going to do to reverse the tide of lower rounds being played at the golf course?" One person had probably never been asked that before, and so had a very reasonable answer of like, "Well, I don't know, I hadn't thought of that." And the other person said, again, kind of put on the spot, like, that didn't think it was that big of a problem, whatever. And maybe that's a bad answer, fine. But the point is, I think that moving forward, one thing that we should consider is beefing up these applications a bit with more specific questions. And if like the liaison or someone can work with staff to add some very specific questions in it, so we ask the applicants to put some thought into this before the interview process, again, so we're not sort of flying blind on this. Because Chair Wiscombe's probably maybe is completely right, and that the current committee isn't doing enough to increase rounds or think outside of the box or whatever. That all may well be true, but as a commissioner, it's pretty hard for me to evaluate what the choice between these two applicants, what impact that's going to have on that. So I'm still, I don't know.
Well,
they both seem nice. They both seem like great people. I don't know which one of them is gonna like bring a lot of new folks to the golf course. And I think we need more information than a couple of questions.
Okay, that's another topic, and yes, I think that's well taken. I do want to make one point, and that's I was not saying that the committee was not doing enough. I'm saying that my comment was really directly related to what Mr. Hughes said, which was increase the home club rounds, because I think there are many, many other avenues that the committee is looking at and needs to continue to look at to get the rounds up at the golf course, in addition to the home clubs. So that's my comment. Mr. Casepier?
I'd like to nominate Elaine Abercrombie for the position of Golf Advisory Committee member.
Community member at large.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And I would like to second that.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Okay.
Renee? Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Ferrara and Mr. Burns opposed. Motion carries.
Yeah, I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining. Okay.
I believe
So-
that still carries.
Yeah, it carries. I had to count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Ms. Abercrombie, welcome. Mr. Hughes, thank you very much for your service. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and now we have...
Chair Wiscombe,
Yeah.
just as a comment, and I made some notes to bring it back to the commission, but there were 2 comments made by the commission through this process tonight that we will do some work on and bring back to you. One is the whole past history of not requiring incumbents to be here, and I heard the commission make a comment about the difficulty of that when you're making a decision about who will be appointed, and then also the application itself. So staff will bring that back. We'll agendize it and bring it back for discussion at the commission again in the future.
That's great. Thank you. Okay.
And I actually will lead into the next 3
I
appointments.
think not, because that's not an agendized item, so you really can't comment. You commenting on what Ms. Rapp said?
If you have a particular thing that you would like for us to add to the discussion, go ahead, because I'll just make the note.
Well, it's an observation I had, and I think it's very important that incumbents are here to speak up for themselves, because this gentleman had the courage to come in and then he said something that possibly could have caused him to lose that, place on there. So I think all incumbents definitely should be here to.
That we will bring back to the commission for discussion as an agendized item.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rapp, did you want to lead into the next?
Yes, we have
Yes.
3 more appointments to the Golf Advisory Committee, and I just, for our new commissioners, wanted to just explain. With the Golf Advisory Committee, the golf course has home clubs. For those of you who are not golfers, those are groups that play. They're associated with the golf course itself. And so the Golf Advisory Committee includes representatives that are recommended by their home club to serve on the Golf Advisory Committee. And so you have 3 of those before you today. John Craig, who is recommended by the Paisanos to serve as their representative, Maureen Mason as the Executive Women's Golf Club representative, and Dominic Namath from the Santa Barbara Men's Club. All of them are incumbents currently, and their organizations have asked them to continue to serve.
Right. And there's no other applications from the club from those clubs on any. So we could, in theory, take this as one motion if
I move the 3 applicants.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. So we have John Craig, Maureen Mason, and Dominic Namath to the GAC. Okay. Thank you. Now we're moving on to item number 6 on the agenda, which is administrative and staff reports. And Ms. Zachary, the annual contributions report. Right.
Chair Wiscombe and members of the commission, I apologize for my voice. I think you can hear me, but I have a head cold. To begin, the Commission receives, particularly for our new commissioners, an annual report on donations and contributions that the department receives. And we report it on a fiscal year basis. So the information that you'll get tonight is for the last fiscal year that ended on June 30th. You also, and you'll see this in the report and in the presentation, have had throughout the year presentations on projects and programs, and as part of those we talk about outside funding, depending on the report. So some of this may seem familiar to you, but it's our opportunity to look at all of the department as a whole. The presentation will look at the sources of contributions, how they are by division. We'll discuss a little bit about how it changes over time. I would like to say that there are many staff in the department that are involved in securing cash donations, writing grant applications, developing partnerships with other groups to have in-kind efforts, building volunteers. There are a number of people, so when we talk about these numbers, I'd just like to acknowledge that in each one of these divisions, there are a number of people that, that make the department successful. So as I mentioned, we have cash donations. So those could be cash or check, could be through the Park Foundation, it could be for a specific program purpose. We have grants for projects and programs. Those are generally awarded on a project-by-project basis, and so they're not something that would necessarily be ongoing. In some cases, they are somewhat secure, or we know that there's an annual funding source, and the work that we have to do is write a proposal that floats to the top and actually gets funded. Donations, non-cash donations could be supplies, could be equipment, could be in-kind in some cases. In some programs, in fact, in a number of them, it has to do with in-kind, non-cash donations related to media outreach and promoting our projects, promoting our programs. And then volunteers, of course, are critical throughout the department. The Creeks Division, in your staff report, goes into this. It separates it out by division, primarily because each division is different in terms of how it secures outside funds based on what that division actually does. The Creeks Division is unique, as you know, in that it's very focused on creek restoration and stormwater quality improvement. And because that's a state and federal priority, over the years, over the last 10 years, there's been more state and federal grant funding sources for capital projects. The Creeks Division is also uniquely positioned in that a lot of the upfront work, the preliminary design, the permitting work can be paid for from Measure B, which places the division in a position to apply for large grants, and then also to maintain the projects that they install. And that's really key, and often other communities aren't in that position, or other departments aren't in that position, and that puts the Creeks Division at an advantage, frankly. Last year, they had a banner year with over $4 million in grant funding. A significant portion of that was ARRA funding, so American Recovery and Reinvestment Act funding, to stimulate the economy. But the work effort to get that $3.4 million was significant. If you can imagine applying for federal grant funding and then kind of redoing it 3 or 4 times as they figure out what they're doing, it's a lot of work. But they were very successful, and funding went for the creek-related stormwater improvements at the golf course, and then also you may have seen an increasing proliferation of storm drain screens throughout town. It's a program we started 7 years ago, and the ARRA funding will allow us to basically install screens on every drop inlet that it can take, which will reduce water quality pollution in the creeks and ocean. And then they also do have volunteers and some non-cash donations. Parks Division is different, and Parks Division also had a banner year last year with a number of grants coming in for specific projects. The National Emergency Grant funded a lot of the really critical work at Parma Park. We recently were awarded a $40,000 grant for Shoreline Park. In recent years, we've been more and more successful with Community Development Block Grant Program. And then the Parma Park Trust, we listed as a grant because we actually work pretty hard to get that money. We have an annual work program. Kathy Fry, who's here tonight, and also Santos Escobar work closely with the trustee. Recently, we went through a review and approval process for a restoration program and a capital program, and we've received more money from the trust than the department's ever received. And you'll hear more about that in the next item. So in last year, over 90% of the funding that came from outside the parks was from grants. The Parks Division also benefits greatly from Santa Barbara Beautiful in both cash donations of $20,000, which supports our Young Tree Care program, but they also cover the cost of all the new trees that are planted in our parkways. And that's a little known fact out there, and so this is a good opportunity to acknowledge them for that, as we are able to buy trees for our tree planting program, and they cover the cost. Last year, the value was $19,400, in addition to the $20,000 that they gave us. And then we had over 4,000 volunteer hours. I'd just like to point out almost 1,700 of them were at the Mission Rose Garden, and just over 400 of them were at Alice Kick Park Memorial Garden. To give you a sense, that's the type of volunteerism if we could generate in our other parks that would be really successful. The Recreation Division has a number of staff who are active, and as you know, Judah McCaffrey is the fund development person. They've had a banner year as well. Grants and cash donations were up significantly over previous years between sponsorships, Park Foundation, Community Development Block Grant Program, additional efforts to support projects and recreation programs for a total of $237,000, just over that in fiscal year 2010. The Recreation Division also has an excellent program to solicit both volunteerism, 27,000 hours, about 14,000 that's just for the senior program, but it's also volunteers in aquatics, youth activities, Youth Apprentice Program, the Youth Arts Alliance, a number of different programs and volunteerism, and you also hear about that throughout the year. 67% of the contributions for recreation came from non-cash donations and volunteer hours. When we look at the year as a whole, we had $5.7 million come into the department for our projects and programs, which is, I think that, I don't know, probably the highest it's ever been. But that's pretty impressive. And if you look across it, there's some consistency and looking at the types of funding that comes in. When you look at it by fiscal year, and we have 4 years here, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, again, looks really good. Does show you a little bit of the variability. One of the things we would want to remind everybody is funding is cyclical, and you can see Creeks, for example, had just under 4,000 in outside funds in 2008, but 4 million in 2010, because it takes time for those applications to go through the process and the projects to be ready. And then it's opportunistic, and sometimes we have opportunities, and sometimes we have fewer opportunities. If you look at contributions by category, there is between 2008 and 2009, cash donations were fairly similar, but they jumped up in 2010. That's a good sign. Grants, variable again. Non-cash donations had an increase in 2010, but the previous 3 years were fairly consistent, so we're gaining there. Volunteer value had a little bit of a dip from last year, but we don't. That can come and go. As you can see, in 2007 it was 346. Now we're at 391 value, so that's variable as well. And with that, it concludes my remarks, and I'd be happy to answer any questions for the Commission.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Zachary. Mr. Larimore Hall?
Maybe this information is already like in the database that this was pulled out of, but do you also sort of track like the source of grants, whether they're from private foundations or individuals versus public entities, local entities, et cetera?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Larimore Hall, yes, we do track it by source, and we know generally where we're more or less likely to be able to seek funding.
So just for next year, I'd like to see that. Well, I mean, I see the specifics, but I'd love to see like a chart with the overall percentage that's coming in from federal grants, local grants. You know, how much of this is city money that is, earmarked for something else or is discretionary and comes in, so it's not part of the general fund, et cetera. I just like to see. I like information, so as much of that as possible. And again, it's not a huge deal and it's not urgent, but maybe for next time, if you already have those categories in the spreadsheet, to just include them would be great.
So, for instance, just to be clear, federal sources, state sources, foundation, private foundation, and CDBG, which is a combination of city and federal money. So just looking at those.
That would be great. That would be perfect.
Okay.
And Commissioner Wiscombe and Commissioner Lermo Hall, also, as part of the capital program, we generally do that, but we can certainly translate that into sort of general funding as it comes from everywhere.
Chair Wiscombe,
Yes.
just to follow up on Commissioner Lermo Hall's comment, when I went through, because it did strike me looking at the list you gave us, how much of it was local money for parks and for recreation. Creeks, there's a lot of bigger grants and bigger sources, but 532,000 of, it looked to me like, of the parks money that came in was really local money. And that's pretty astounding to think, that means much of it's city money, but just that our support is a local base. And then with the recreation, 119,000 of the 187 was local money. So that's, I think we see a broad base of community support, and that jumped out at me. I agree. It's interesting to look at where the money comes from.
That's a very good comment. Yes, Mr. Casebeer?
Well, following along, follow the money. In these difficult economic times where we see general fund revenue support for parks and recreation diminishing, these sources will become more and more important. And I would like to see an emphasis placed on the recreational aspects of grant and fund development. And what I'm after is our programs for the kids, after-school programs, study hall programs, anything that we can help our kids, like Diego knows best, how we can keep these kids busy and doing good things. And I think there is a way we can market this to the community, to the foundations, with, and I'd be happy to help in this regard.
Great, thank you. Yes, Mr. Burns?
Just a question. How are we on track for this year? Or have we got any numbers yet? Any guesstimates?
I'm sorry, I just looked to see if Judith was here. Do you have? I'm not sure that I know the number off the top of my head right now.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Burns, we were actually working on that earlier this week, and we pull the numbers together every 6 months. So I'm sorry to say I don't have an actual number for you, but we will by mid-January, end of January.
Okay.
Just another. I really, as someone who does this to keep an organization alive myself, it's hard, and I appreciate the staff time. I don't think all staff go into public service with the idea that they're going to be writing grants to have that service happen. It's a new phenomenon, I think, in government work to have to go out for the funding, and I really appreciate the flexibility and the enthusiasm staff has gone after it with. So thank you very much. We do see the increases, and I think it's paying off. So thank you.
I would echo that comment, and I think I'd also say that you need to toot your horn a little more, because I compared 07 to FY 2007 to FY 2010. Cash up 191%, grants 833%, non-cash 34%, and volunteer 13%. Now, in an economy like this, where we've had this, the worst recession since the Depression, these numbers are really, really outstanding, and I appreciate my fellow commissioners' comments about breaking them down in different ways, and since that information is available, I think that would be really helpful to the commission down the road. But I was astounded when I looked at these numbers, and you just would not expect these kind of great numbers in this economy. So I applaud all of you. You've obviously worked really hard. Grant writing is not easy. It's time consuming, and it's precise. And Ms. Zachary's right. Your application has to jump to the top, and that's you've done that, and you've also gone out, and the local sources are varied, and you're leaving no stone unturned, and it's paid off. Thank you. Anyone else?
Chair Wiscombe and Commission, just in response to Commissioner Casebeer's comment with a focus on grant writing to support recreation programs and in particular youth programs, it is important to understand that that is becoming increasingly challenging in this community. We are often not the preferred recipient of grant funds because people perceive us as being the city. Well, we are the city, but people perceive us as, we should be funded by the city. We all understand the challenges of that. And so, nonprofit organizations are generally favored, and that makes it a little challenging for us. And also, there is less money to come in. And then I think the other thing that we certainly see is on the recreation side, the grants are typically awarded in the $1,000 or $2,000 amount. And so you do a lot of work for $1,000, which we're grateful for, but it's the same amount of work that, someone else would do for some other source where you're getting, $25,000 or $100,000. So it is very challenging. We are committed to keeping it up and to improving what we can do and to staying abreast with the nonprofit community and the foundation community so that we are working in concert with them because we know that we do provide some very important services to the community.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Zachary. Really appreciate that. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, Parma Park Capital Improvement Project Update Report. Ms. Fry?
Thank you. Good evening. This information will maybe fill in some of the blanks of where some of those funds for Parma Park have gone in the last year and in the past 2 years since the T fire. That accounts for the restoration portion of the report, our work after the T fire. Parma Park is one of 11 open space parks in the city. It's in the Sycamore Creek watershed. You can see Parma Park up towards Los Padres National Forest in the north. Kind of has the form of Texas, and it's about 200 acres in the Sycamore Creek watershed. It provides passive recreation for hikers, bikers, and equestrians, and hikers are limited to the main road within the park. In 1973, Harold and John Parma deeded this property to the city, and in 2000, Harold had the foresight to establish the trust, which provides for the preservation and the maintenance of Parma Park. In the 2008 T fire in November, Parma Park was right in the middle of that fire, within the Sycamore Creek watershed, which is within that larger red boundary that you see on the screen there. The park suffered about 95% loss of its native habitats, burned to the ground and sometimes even below the soil level. The park is recovering in those 2 years after the fire. And part of our work was to address the immediate hazards and the recovery and the rehabilitation of the park. You can see the devastation, what happened to those habitats, and you can see that we had our work really cut out for us. Prior to the fire, we did have plans for the Stanwood equestrian and staging project, and that project was put on hold. We actually finished the plans in October of 2008, and the T-fire occurred the following month in November of 2008. We put the project on hold till we waited to see what was going to be the outcome of the fire, whether we were going to be dealing with erosion in the park, and what was actually going to be the condition of the location where the staging area was going to occur. We revised plans in the spring of 2010 of this year, and construction began in August, and it was completed in September. Part of that project was a new gate where a simple swing gate once stood. We now have sandstone and cobble gate. The lower portion of the gate there with the horizontal bar is a step over for equestrians to come into the park, and also for walkers and bike riders can easily pick up their bike and step over that with the front of the park being locked at that gate. You can also see that the front road, the entry road, was resurfaced, and we part of the project also include the upgrade of the staging area. With that upgrade, we now can fit 3 trucks with 2-horse trailers around that area, and we have a new handicap parking space, and the picnic area has been resurfaced, so a handicapped person and possibly a wheelchair can make their way to one of those picnic tables, which is an accessible table. We also have an accessible water fountain in that area. You can see some fencing. There's temporary fencing. I'll move on to my next picture. Here we go. That shows the picnic table on the left is the accessible table. There is a water fountain over to our right. That temporary fencing, it's not real attractive, but it is protecting something that is going to be attractive in the future, and that's a part of our restoration project. At the culmination of the project, we did hold an opening and had volunteers come in and help us with that restoration. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. One of the features that we included in there was a sign. And since the T-fire and along with the Stanwood project, we've worked on some other projects, including rehab and rehabilitation, removal of non-natives, trail work, fencing, work on the olive grove, work with volunteers to help us get the park back and running and looking the way it does today, 2 years later. There is a new bulletin board on the west side, or it's actually the east, but left of that table, a new bulletin board, and we have a new interpretive sign that's going to be put in that bulletin board at the new year. It's got a great map of the park, so you'll be able to come in and have an idea of where you could possibly hike in those 5 miles of trail. And it also includes some history of Parma Park, information on habitats and wildlife, and a little guide to what you may see as you walk along those trails. It also includes a beautiful picture of Giovanni and Caterina Parma, who were the first Parma family to gather these properties and create this section of property that we now call Parma Park. We worked on other signage for the park. We've incorporated all of our rules and regulations into one sign, where in the past they've been in multiple signs, and updated that information. That's the sign on the left. That will go at all of our entrances. And the trail sign on the right was created out of recycled olive wood from the grove, the 100-year grove that burned during the fire. Here is the grove, and on the left is the olive wood that was used. It was cut down and then milled, and those signs were created. That trail sign was created from that wood. That is the grove after the fire. And over the past 2 years, we've had staff, volunteers, contractors, the National Emergency Grant Crew, which you see with our volunteer, they're being trained on how to restore and maintain the grove. So many people have worked on this project, on the olive grove, trying to rehab it, make sure that it did survive. We also had FEMA grant money in order to accomplish this. And 2 years later, here it is in what we expect to be a 10-year restoration and rehabilitation program. I think it looks like it's further down the road than 2 years in a 10-year program. It's really starting to take that form again of trees. And if you look at the shrub that it was after the first year after the fire and what it is in this picture, it's really coming along. But it does take a lot of work and a lot of energy, and we will continue on. This will continue to be part of our work at Parma Park. In addition to the olive grove burning, we also had a eucalyptus grove burn adjacent to the olive grove. This eucalyptus grove is non-native and was identified by staff in the past as something that we would like to eradicate in the park. We were fortunate enough after the fire to have FEMA funds to help us accomplish this. And we also had the help of, you can see on the right where it's been cut down with those funds. We also had the help of the National Emergency Grant Crew. You can see next to them that the stumps are already sprouting. They went in and manually raked that grove to remove the eucalyptus seeds to help prevent resprout. We had funds from the Parma Trust to stump grind that area, and now we've moved into our rehabilitation and restoration phase, and there are volunteers who joined us with the reopening of the park from the Stanwood Project. And we not only had volunteers help us with the labor, we also had people help us with grants. You can see in this picture some of the people from the Santa Barbara Garden Club. They provided a $1,000 grant to help defray the cost of the plants. We also had another group, and I'll show you that slide in a moment. I want to go back and let you know how this occurred. We had a Santa Barbara natives, a contractor, come in and collect seeds as plants resprouted after the fire, those that survive, as our insurance policy, just in case habitats did not survive, or if we had opportunities such as this, they came in and collected native seed from Parma Park. We identified this opportunity. They grew plants for us in their nursery, and they brought those plants to the park, and with the help of about 37 volunteers, we planted 2,000 native plants in 3 hours, I think, that morning. It was, I think, a new record for us in restoration and volunteer help. Another group that we had that helped both financially and with their labor, was the Laguna Blanca Lower School. We had students, young students, and also their middle school helped out. We had teachers and parents come in and help with this work. And you can see by the smiles on their faces, it wasn't actually too hard. It was actually a very fun day. And a fast day. We also had volunteers from UCSB, from Westmont. We had community members, commissioners, and people from the neighborhood who came and helped us do this restoration work. We are moving out of our rehabilitation and restoration phase and actually moving into our work plan phase just 2 years after the 2008 fire. We will be working on trail maintenance, on defensible space management. We'll continue on with our olive grove maintenance and with exotic species removal and with small restoration projects as they had been identified prior to the fire. We will continue on with restoration at Parma Park. All of our work in the work plan and our restoration is subject to review and approval by the Parma Park Trust. And in closing, I and all of the staff would like to thank the Parma Park Trust and the trustee for their continuing support of Parma Park and the staff, and for the generosity of the Parma family for their donation of the land and their foresight in providing the trust to provide funds for the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really informative. The 2 years restoration phase to work plan, that's phenomenal. It really is. And Duroc and I were looking at each other, looking at the olive trees. That's changed from a lot from your last report. Yeah, it's just great. Thank you. Comments, questions from the commission? Do you have one, Mr. Torsten? Yes.
It's definitely important how we definitely look at and construct our parks and keeping them, preserving them. And they're definitely historical, and it's just wonderful by seeing the whole plan of how it's involved. And so I just want to give you guys praise.
Thank you. Mr. Farrar, yes.
Thank you, Chair Wiscombe. I had the good fortune of going on a tour of the parks about a week and a half ago with Mr. Escobar, and I was totally impressed with Parma Park and what's been done up there. It is so beautiful, the restoration, and, from looking down from up above and down below where the equestrian section is, that it doesn't even, you can tell that there's been a fire through there, but it doesn't really look like it's been recent. I mean, the job is so well done that it's growing back in, and it's just a very beautiful open park. And I just want to say and we do have actually a well there too, a natural well, and I believe we got new pumps and for that well, and just fresh water right there is really great. Just want to say that. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Ms. Longstreet?
Wouldn't it be a dream to have more of these trusts for different parks? What a gift to the community that the Parma family gave. And the planting day was very well organized, and the community volunteers, it was great to see such a varied group of people out there. It was a fun day, so thank you for all your work in making that happen.
I didn't see your picture up there. Was your picture?
I was there the whole time.
I know. I wanted proof.
Couldn't move the next day, but I was there the whole time.
37 volunteers, 2,000 plants. Did you say 3 hours or something? That's, jeez.
Let's hope they live.
Okay. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Okay, we are moving on to Neighborhood and Outreach Services report.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, Although we have provided the Commission with a regular monthly update on all the progress of the Neighborhood and Outreach Services effort, we asked staff to put together kind of an overarching summary of where they are to date. As you know, this was a major effort that came out of two things. One, the city's focus on youth violence and listening to neighbors in underserved neighborhoods, and the challenge that we had with the reduction in general fund support, and the goals that we all, including City Council, the Park and Recreation Commission, and the 3 advisory committees for the community centers, everybody had some very specific goals and objectives that they wanted to see come out of this. So we felt that it's been a year and a half since the Neighborhood and Outreach Services was created, and we thought it was a good time to kind of give you an overview of where we are. So you're going to see many of the staff from Neighborhood and Outreach Services, and the senior supervisor, Antonio Velasquez, will lead off the report.
Chairperson, Wiscombe Commissioners, we were here last year giving, again, an update of what we do as Neighborhood and Outreach Services. For some of you, it's going to be an update of information. For some of you that I did not address last year, it will be some new information. And for both the new and the continuing members, you'll also get some information on what we plan to do in the next year. My supervisor, colleague, Susan Young, is here also. Let's see if I can. As Nancy mentioned, the Neighborhood and Outreach Services was established in 2009 through a merger of community services and teen program sections. And we are continuing to provide the added outreach and services to youth and to families and neighborhoods to be able to meet our mission statement, which is serving neighborhoods and strengthening families. Although we are focused in 5 neighborhoods, 5 commonly called neighborhoods in Santa Barbara, Laguna, East Side, West Side, Lower West Side, and West Downtown, we service the entire community. We are a city service. Most people know us for our more visible facilities. The Franklin Neighborhood Center that is located on East Montecito Street on the east side, the Louise Lowry Davis Center, the adult building at De La Vina Street, and the West Side Community Center. But that is not all the facilities that we have. We have 3 community gardens, our organic gardening program at Pilgrim Terrace, that is out on Modoc Street, across the street from the junior high, the Cumbre Junior High. Rancheria, that is on 300 block of Rancheria Street on the Lower West Side, and Yanonali Community Garden, which is on the corner of Yanonali Street and Soledad. We service a total of 180 families in 10 by 20 plots. It services a lot of individuals and families that do not have that open space that many individuals have if they own their home and have a big backyard. We also have a children's garden on the corner of Wentworth and Cornell Street, specifically targeted at young people. And you can see a photo there of the young people taking part in that. We have parking facilities in Neighborhood and Outreach Services. We have a fee-paying parking lot at Davis Center. And we also introduced a monthly parking program in a piece of property that is right in front of the Lawn Bowl at Davis Center, which we are now renting on a monthly basis. That is bringing in $20,000 additional revenue to the department. We also have a youth sports center that is currently used by the Primo Boxing Club on 700 block of Haley Street. A very, very effective program for young people. And the 1235 Teen Center, which all of you are familiar with, that we currently now are contracting out with the PAL program. We provide safe, accessible, and affordable facilities at very low cost. And we also provide tenant space to nonprofit service providers at below market rates. Even though we are trying to be as competitive as possible, but we still have a subsidized program for those nonprofit agencies that do not have readily available grants and fundraising. We also are a forum for community participation. You heard about the effort that we undertook this year to combine the 3 advisory committees into a neighborhood advisory council. We have a very effective Santa Barbara Youth Council also that is coordinating many effective activities and undertaking discussion on issues that are very important to young people. And we have many community projects, and we'll be looking at some of those. Our offices are a valuable source also of information, so we are a resource center for these neighborhoods in the city. Most of our services, if not all of them, are free to low-income families. Just to name a few of the services that we provide, we have food distribution programs at our community centers. We have a mobile farmers market that is free to the public. And we have a mobile pantry program that we helped the food bank start many years ago. We provide youth job readiness programs through our job apprentice program and our Youth Jobs Connection, which is an effort that brings together many different job-related services in the neighborhood, brings them together into one source, and makes it available to the public, both youth and to families. Our teen program focuses on providing healthy and safe and secure diversion and preventive services to meet the goals of the city, which is making a very, very big effort to curb the incidences of violence in our city. Our special programs are those that we highlight, not necessarily are programs that take a lot of money and effort, but they are very, very valuable in regards to the service provided, not only to the teens and to the individuals involved, but also provides us as a city with those activities that highlight the effectiveness of and the participation of families and young people in our neighborhoods. One of them is the Healthy Options for Teens that has operated now for about 3-4 years, which highlighted a special program called the Culinary Arts Program. This was a program that was done in collaboration with our chef at the Westside Community Center. We brought together young people in the neighborhood and provided them with an 18-week course in the culinary arts. Most of it done by a lot of volunteer professionals in the neighborhood. The Santa Barbara Arts Alliance, that you may have seen photos of their work. The most recent one was a beautiful 80-foot mural that was done at the airport. This group has now undertaken a volunteer task of adopting the Milpas Corridor and are now doing a weekly graffiti removal program there. And this is all done with their volunteer time after school. Youth speak-outs through the Youth Council have been very, very, very valuable in terms of bringing information participation to teens and adults. Skills building workshops. We have teens themselves that are very much involved in organizing and putting together skill building workshops. Two you heard about previously, which were the youth rights workshops that were held by the Youth Council. And then on the west side, we just ended a group of series of 18 workshops that were provided, organized, and conducted by youth themselves from the West Side to West Side youth. And the Santa Barbara Teen Coalition, which you heard previously, is a coalition of 50-plus agencies. Our staff coordinates that and brings together these agencies to discuss resources, trends, and assist with bringing forward new ideas on what can be done in that area. We also provide volunteer and senior employment sites. One of your commissioners up there works very, very closely with us with the senior employment program. We provide work sites and training for some of these employees, and they do a fantastic job for us. Youth leadership, again, if you'll notice, one of those photos is a youth conducting a workshop to youth. So a lot of it is direct involvement by the youth themselves in providing the peer leadership. Neighborhood preservation activities, our advisory committees have been involved considerably with providing an input to community development, public works, and to the department on what is necessary for infrastructure development and improvement in our neighborhoods. We are also involved with the Community Development Block Grant and the Neighborhood Improvement Task Force coordination. We are very much involved in Community Development Block Grant proposal writing and submission, and the coordination of the priority areas that the neighborhoods see as those very important areas that we should focus on with this funding. Service delivery. In our facilities, we have a highly trafficked facility use at the Franklin Center, for instance, and this does not include the tenant agency clients that we have there. You see the graph that we have 9,000, close to 10,000 people that come to our Franklin Center. Davis Center, with the closure of Carrillo Street, we had a significant jump in clientele coming to the Davis Center for services. Teen programs through three youth centers at the West Side, Franklin Center, and the Teen Center had close to 5,500 young people. Since we do not have the Lower West Side Center any longer, we are having office hours. We have street office hours. Twice a week we have a table out in the corner, different corners where people actually come to us for city services. And the West Side Center, again, a highly trafficked facility that has close to 12,000 people coming to it. Our community centers at Franklin and West Side and our youth sports program, our youth sports center, we have leasable space to nonprofit agencies. We're currently leasing upwards of 17,000 square feet at $1.12 a square foot. Our tenant agencies serve approximately 28,000 clients, which is quite a bit. And the photos that you see up on the screen is our efforts at keeping our facilities up to the quality standards that our tenants and our communities expect of the city. These photos here are the construction phases and then the final product of the renovation that took place at the Santa Barbara County Clinic at the Franklin Center. Our tenant service partners that bring many of our community to our facilities are those you see up on the screen, and these services range anywhere from providing meals to seniors to services to the disabled, to young people, and some of our more quantitative one is the Santa Barbara County Health Services that provides a full service clinic over on the east side at Franklin Center. And you just had a report on the community support and grants for the department, and I just want to, highlight some of the grants that came into our section this year or this last year. We had over $168,000 in support through our many volunteers that come to help us in many of our programs and activities. But I do also want to highlight that in our community development block grant proposals, we just received $35,000 to provide the Davis and the West Side Center auditoriums with air conditioning. Because we do have impacted communities using those facilities, and you can imagine how hot those places get when we have a private event of over 200-300 people. $25,000 was received for a youth services drop-in center that is currently being renovated over at the Franklin Center. It's a new development. We shifted around our uses at the facility to create a new teen center. $43,000 came to us from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which we are using for the apprentice program. We're using it over a period of 2 years. It'll end this year. It was one time. We received close to $4,000 for Youth Making Changes grants. One was for the Teen Rights Program that the Youth Council sponsored, and another was for the 18 skill building workshops on the west side by a youth group called Manawia. The Healthy Option Program, again, brought in $6,000, which made available the Culinary Arts Program, as well as the Healthy Snack Program for 3 teen centers on a daily basis. The Santa Barbara Arts Alliance brought in $11,000 and made available the participation of many young people on both the west side and the east side, and created some very beautiful murals throughout the city. They are currently now, when I left to come here, they were working on repainting the ocean scene on the backboard of our recently renovated west side playground area. NOS program highlights and accomplishments since we have been instituted. There was the creation of the Neighborhood Advisory Council, which was a challenging process, and I thank the commissioners that were members of it. And it was long discussions. Started out on a bumpy road, but at the end, the consensus was reached. It was beautiful. Funding for the Franklin Teen Services Drop-In Center, as I mentioned. Facilitated the reactivation of Milpas Neighborhood Association by, again, our neighborhood forums that our advisory committees hold. The Neighborhood Health and Information Fair, again, this is something that we try to do on a yearly basis in those neighborhoods that don't have the facilities, such as the Lower West Side. We had a great fair this last year that brought many families for the first time in contact with medical services, which we take for granted, many of us take for granted. Our apprentice program had a fantastic participation of 233 youth apprentices. We had 33 that were employed in hourly positions within city departments. 200 were on stipend or on a volunteer program, and we're happy to say that 5 were retained in city positions. And that is, again, 2 were permanent at the water department, and the rest were retained as hourly employees. We had the successful completion of the Santa Barbara Airport mural project that was a great collaboration with the airport staff, and it was a great mural opening that we had out there a few months ago. The Youth and Teen Rights Forums and Workshops. We introduced, again, as I mentioned, the monthly parking fee program that I think is going to be a fantastic addition to our revenue program. We provided over 550 families with weekly food distribution services. Here we're talking not only of those 2 programs that I mentioned, but also we have the brown bag program at our facilities. And we provided meeting and activity space for over 50,000 participants at our facilities. Upcoming projects. Our Neighborhood Advisory Council has been formed. The City Council has now put together its schedule for naming the members of this council. Applications are available now. You can call us if anyone is interested. They can call us at our telephone number. It's on the web. And The deadline for applications, submittals, will be January 20th. And interviews will be conducted by City Council on February the 3rd at the Franklin Community Center at 7 p.m. They will also have in council chambers on February 8th at 4 p.m. a second interview date. We expect to continue with our neighborhood service projects and our teen program development. As mentioned earlier, the grant program is something that we are, increasingly getting involved in, and glad to say that we were just involved finalizing 9 community development block grant proposals that will be submitted tomorrow. We are also planning on renovating our community garden pathways, since it's been a few years since we went through a complete renovation there. This will be done by our gardeners and volunteers in our neighborhoods. And we also expect to conduct a Lower West Side neighborhood needs survey, since we are increasingly having more and more needs are becoming identified in that area, since we no longer have a community center there. Our section staff to serve the neighborhood is myself as a senior supervisor, Susan Young as a NOS supervisor, Ricardo Venegas, our coordinator 2, that is located at the Franklin Neighborhood Center, Pete Leyva, our coordinator 1, that focuses on the Lower West Side Center, Mary Berry, our office specialist at Franklin Center, and Salvador Cornejo, who's our ground maintenance. Of course, we wouldn't be able to do all we do if it weren't for the many hourly staff and the fantastic volunteers that we have in our community, and we thank them. This concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Velasquez. Again, I'm astounded at all you do. It's phenomenal. You're out there in so many ways, making a difference in the community. Are there comments and questions? Excuse me, Mr. Farrar.
I want to thank the neighborhood outreach staff, Antonio, Susan, and everybody else, because I wouldn't be sitting here today if I hadn't met you fine folks and found out how an individual citizen can get involved in working in great projects that cities have. So I want to thank you for that opportunity.
Ms. Longstreet?
I think we always look at Parks and Recreation and we think of playing and activities, and we don't think of all the social services that come under our department and the services provided to the community that do make it a better place to live for many people, and I appreciate that, and thank you. It's nice to see that the Lower West Side is not forgotten, even though we had to give up our center. And I know in the future there will be some creative way to find a space to make a presence, be it at the school or with another nonprofit or whatever. I think just keeping the presence alive, though, is really important, especially with the changes we're seeing in the neighborhood. I think the upsurge in student housing that we're seeing in the Lower West Side may have a great effect on the families that we see there. So I appreciate everything you're doing, and thank you very much.
I also, you mentioned the survey for the Lower West Side. I think that's going to be important. I hope that gets going sooner than later. Any other comments? Yes.
I definitely just want to definitely give praises to the neighborhood and outreach services. They have done a terrific job just out there with the whole entire community, and that's the certain outreach services that we need in this community. So just want to give you praises. And then I just want to ask one question too as well as the teen center. What has the connection been with PAL and outreach services so far, of how like the attendance of youth been? Is there a certain little amount of what you can give a little bit?
Chair Wiscombe, Commissioners, we have, since we handed over the Senate 1235 to PAL, we do have some structure in place, and they are currently now putting together the committee that will be meeting to discuss the needs in that facility. They are in contact with the Youth Council, and I believe they may have already given a report here regarding, if they haven't, they will soon. They will be having an open house, an opening of the facility. So the connection is there. The committee will be composed of our staff with Youth Council staff and PAL staff, as well as some of the youth participants. They are in the process of developing the program. They have had limited participation in regards to some of the programs that they're having there, but they are incrementally increasing their activity there. So we expect that, it's going to be just like the one that we have established over at the Franklin Center, where, again, we're developing that program to make it a full-service center, too, within, we hope within the next couple of months.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Casebeer?
Thank you for everything you're doing. And thank you for creating this program. I think it's so important that all our community knows what is being done on their behalf for the people that don't have opportunities, that don't have access to the services. And I'm hopeful that the City Council will also be cognizant of the programs that are being offered through neighborhood outreach services, so that when it comes to budget times, we can preserve and enhance these programs. Thank you.
Mr. Larimore Hall.
I think when people talk about, or when we talk about neighborhood and outreach services, I mean, for good reason, we talk about how important the services and the programs that are housed under that division are for low-income people, for working-class people in the community, which is wonderful. And if I had my druthers, it'd be a whole department. But I think what gets missed sometimes when we talk about it that way is how universal a lot of these programs are, how wide-ranging they are in terms of participation and input and so forth. That, as Antonio said at the beginning, like this, it's a citywide division that does work for people of all walks of life. I mean, everything from the senior employment programs and the programs that happen at the Davis Center through to a lot of the organizations that we're providing subsidized rent to do community work serve all kinds of people in all kinds of walks of life. So if we were a community that didn't have these somewhat hidden pockets of poverty, if we were a community that could somehow solved all those problems and everyone was affluent, we would still need a neighborhood and outreach services division and that work to be done. So I think that you're just doing a fantastic job. I think that the changes to the committee structure for input are going to be really exciting and good. I feel really privileged that I was able to be a part of that. But I just think that we need to understand how much this department and how much the division, the NOS division, is a real nexus for all kinds of things that are happening in this community, and a real community benefit to everyone from every walk of life in the city.
I would, I would echo that, and it's phenomenal that this has been in existence for a year and a half, and you're right, it's gone out to many facets of the community, and I hope the word gets out more about about what you do. And thank you so much for everything you do. It's really quite astounding. Is there anyone else? Okay. Yes.
Chair Wiscombe,
Yes.
Commissioners, I do want to thank your leadership in having supported us in this new development, and hope that you will continue to support us. And we must be doing something right. You have 2 people up there that came through the ranks of our advisory committees. We hope there'll be more in the future.
It's a good training ground. When I came on the commission at first, I asked if I could do both, and I didn't want to come on the commission if I had to give up the Lower West Side. So it is dear to my heart.
Thank you again. Thank you, Ms. Young, also. Okay. We are on to agenda item number 9, which is the after-school recreation and sports program report.
Commissioners, in the interest of wanting every once in a while to kind of give you an overview of what some of our programs are, I asked the youth activities staff and the sports staff to put together an overview of the after-school programs and also the youth sports programs that we operate on campus. So this is our final report for the night, and I want to thank you for your attention. I know this has been a longer meeting, but we really appreciate that you're here. And with that, I will defer to Terry Brown.
Good evening, Chair Wiscombe and Parks and Recreation Commissioners. I am Terry Brown, as Nancy said, and tonight I'm here with my colleagues, and we will present to you our after-school programs. We currently have 5 different after-school programs, and each of these programs is unique in how they're funded, as well as who they serve and where they're located in the demographic of the neighborhood for the students that attend that school.
Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly Coley, and I'm the Recreation Coordinator for Youth Activities. The Recreation After School Program, also known as RAP, operates on 5 local elementary school campuses and is solely run by the City of Santa Barbara's Parks and Recreation Department. Programs run 2:30 to 5:30, 5 days a week for 180 days of school. These programs are fee-based, where parents have a couple of options for registration. They can enroll in a 30-day unlimited session or purchase a more flexible 10-visit drop-in pass. Families who are in need of financial assistance may actually qualify for a city-funded scholarship through the Youth Activities Office. The application process requires a completed activity registration form, a scholarship application, as well as a copy of their most recent pay stub. As you can see, 71 of these city-funded scholarships have been awarded to date for this school year, so they are vital to our community. Additional funding for scholarships is also provided by a couple other Santa Barbara organizations who reimburse us directly for the services that we provide to their qualifying families. RAP students participate in 1 hour of activities, whether it's a sport, game, or craft, or all 3, as well as 1 hour of homework help and reading time each day. We then supplement our daily schedule with field trips that are scheduled occasionally, as well as Friday clubs where students are introduced to new areas of activities each session. As you can see, the 2 photos on the left illustrate our more popular club offerings so far this year. We have the Monroe Gardening Club at the top, and then the Washington Creative Cooking Club at your bottom left. Students are recognized for positive behavior, good sportsmanship, as well as lending helping hands through our RAP Star of the Session Student Incentive Program. RAP staff nominate Stars of the Session, and they are then awarded certificates of achievement, as well as given priority participation in several events that come up that are special events that happen throughout the year. Tough times call for creative programming, and as a result, the RAP program has incorporated some new activities this year. Fun for Free days are offered once per session, where students are encouraged to bring friends and neighbors to the program that day for free. We've actually seen a really great response to this new program where we've had 15 new families sign up, and we're only on our 3rd session, so there's only been 3 of these free days so far. Parent play dates are also new. They are also offered once per session, where family members are actually encouraged to come to the program on that given day, join the fun, and get to see what their kids are doing on a daily basis. We are now providing free snacks at Adams and Monroe RAP programs through our collaboration with the Community Action Commission, and encouraging our students to get involved in the Santa Barbara community through our service learning projects, which are also new. If you'll notice at the top of this screen, the picture with the colorful banner of balloons is our Washington RAP program, and they raised through weekly bake sales almost $500 for the American Heart Association, and then later participated in their annual Heart Walk back in October. The bottom right-hand picture is of the Monroe RAP program, where the students also raised money through bake sales. They organized a holiday giving tree. The students took field trips to local community businesses for, shopping and picking out gift packages, where they then put together to send home today to 29 Monroe families in need. The bottom left-hand picture is a shot of some students out at OAS, where they have issued a campus-wide MOOP challenge, which stands for Matter Out of Place. And these students, their special event isn't until the spring, but as you can see, they're already hard at work keeping their campus clean. So I mentioned tough times in the previous slide because we did see a decrease in RAP registration for FY10. With 6 school sites, our numbers dropped from 329 to 290 for FY10. However, in FY11, with only 5 school sites, we are climbing back up currently to 298. These are, let me remind you, mid-year numbers, and we do expect and look forward to new families enrolling in RAP in the new year. The Recreation After School program operates on a balanced budget, where, as you can see, our revenue is made mostly through program fees, and then we also get $60,000 from the general fund to provide those program scholarships that I was speaking of earlier. So overall, as you can see, the Recreation After School programs are keeping kids safe, supervised, and quite busy after school. While we are able to offer currently a variety of activities for both the children and their families, we are always looking for ways to expand upon and improve the program. Thank you.
Okay, I will speak to you about the AOK program, which is offered at 5 elementary schools. The AOK program was established in 1999 with the lead agency as the Santa Barbara School District. It was at that time that the Santa Barbara School District and the Parks and Recreation Department wrote a grant. It was a long name, a partnership program, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember what it was. So fortunately, in 2002, Proposition 49 acquired money from legislature for all Title I schools to apply. In Santa Barbara, it's called the After School Education and Safety Funded Grant. And a Title I school is a school where 50% of the students are at or below the poverty level. In Santa Barbara, for example, at Adams, 75% of those students are at or below the poverty level. And at Franklin, 100% of the students are at or below the poverty level. So it's a necessary program. Because of supplemental funding from legislature, each of those schools can also have a family advocate, who is somebody who works in our after-school program as well as throughout the school day. And they actually take registration, which is reported back to the state. And additionally, they provide services for students that might need medical, dental, clothing, any other care that they're not being provided with at the time. Partners are a huge, huge part of AOK. Because it is initially a partnership program, we do have additional partners such as PAL, Girl Scouts, the CAC, and the CDC, and all of those partners usually participate at each of the schools on Fridays during club time when the students don't have homework. Of the students that are identified, because generally they are the most in need at those Title I schools, or they're the lowest performers at those schools, they are targeted to actually be enrolled into AOK. And for us to receive the funding, it's required in legislature that we have components that are necessary for us to receive funding, as I said. And the academic component requires 1 hour of homework completion per day. And the goal is at the end of the week that 100% of the students have completed 100% of their homework. The curriculum is what the Parks and Recreation Department staff provide, and that's usually an outdoor recreation or sport. And then the attendance is how we are funded, as I said, and the school district is reimbursed at $7 per day per student. The staffing for AOK is also unique versus the RAP staffing. Because the funding is in the school district, they are able to hire one certificated teacher who stewards the entire program at each site. The 3 Parks and Rec staff are actually contracted by the school district, and we are reimbursed for our service that we provide through the recreation leaders, and those are the activities in the sports that we switch out every 5 weeks. Staff receive additional curriculum trainings in the evenings so that they are, skilled in what they're providing, and we do try and provide with our program leaders and the additional training that is paid for through the grant. High level of, a good program. The district staff are also program leaders that are trained differently in curriculum that has more to do with math, science, reading activities, things that will help these students learn up to their grade level. And then the volunteers, we have 4 volunteers from the Youth Council who are currently helping with homework, as well as we have high school volunteers that are earning community service, CalWorks, City College students. And between Parks and Recreation efforts and the school district efforts, we usually try and have 3 to 4 volunteers, so each program leader has an aide in their classroom every day. The ratio is 20 students to 1 staff, so these volunteers are vital because, as I said, the students are greatly in need of assistance, especially with their homework, to try and achieve grade level. This funding, the over $226,000, is the funding that the Parks and Recreation Department collaborates with the school district on. In addition, the over $47,000 that the city has provided has never changed. We have always been able to provide that. We're very, very proud of that. That's our financial contribution. And then in kind, the city of Santa Barbara provides much, much more through our after-school sports program, the use of the Harding Recreation Center, 180 school days, the use of our vehicles for transporting students to field trips. The list goes on about how we can help also serve the students, not through funding, but through services. And that concludes the portion of the AOK program. I just did want to mention that the service club on the bottom with the blankets was a Friday club where students were given big fluffy pieces of material, and the staff taught the students how to make blankets. That then one of the field trips was to visit Transition House and deliver the blankets to the children. So that was very heartwarming. Okay, going on. Another after-school program is our junior high after-school sports and enrichment program. And that program has evolved to become more of a partnership program where the partners actually work with the Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation in a co-sponsorship agreement so that they have access to the students at the junior highs. Without the partnership, without the co-sponsorship agreement, they wouldn't be able to provide the service that they're able to provide. In some cases, it's free. In other cases, it's kind of geared toward what their funding source is. Okay. The Police Activities League, which I know you've heard quite a bit about, has really enhanced the after-school sports program. They've been able to provide uniforms, transportation to indoor facilities for basketball. They also do charge a nominal fee, which we have also found enhances the students' participation. And in order for students to participate in the after-school sports leagues, they have to have completed their homework, and the staff does check in with the principal to make sure that that's happening. BC Bici Centro is a local bike club next in a portion of La Casa de la Raza. And they were very kind in taking their program on the road. And a few times a year, we lit up the cargo van with used bikes and tools and established a program at the junior highs where for 6 weeks the students are taught how to renovate a bike and custom make it so it fits them properly and it's, riding as it should be. And then at the end, they do local bike rides, and they're taught safe riding skills on the streets and things like that. And then they are given their bike, a helmet, and a lock to keep at the end of the program. Club West is an organization of local former runners who are committed to maintaining a sort of a running community in Santa Barbara. And there was no cross-country or track programs at the junior high, so they have inserted their volunteers at the junior highs. And the photo is at Elings Park, where they every year now coordinate an all junior high cross-country meet, so the students can all run together, and it's a really hard course. Girls Inc. is new this year, and they're providing a photography and journalism class, and it's been popular. It's been an opportunity for the kids to learn how to take pictures, of course, and then write about what they're taking. We're very, very happy to have these partners. I would like to say that we're always looking for more, so any nonprofits that are interested in partnering with any of our elementary or junior high school programs are more than welcome to contact the department. Inclusion. Inclusion is a program that serves currently approximately 36 students, and this past year we served 36 children in our inclusion program. However, approximately 400 registration forms are reviewed each year for health and special needs. So of those forms that we receive in the Adapted Programs Office, some of them are then assessed with what we call our assessment team, which is a nurse and some other staff recreation specialists who work with the family to determine how best we can support that child's safety in an activity, not just in our after-school programs, but possibly in a summer camp or something where we might even ask for a doctor's authorization or something so that we are very confident that that child will be safe participating in the program that they've registered for. Our budget is not very big, and although the number of children we serve seems like a small number, when you think about the fact that we really have 10 to 15 hourly staff, those staff require specialized training through our inclusion coordinator. And they also require an assessment meeting where they meet the child, meet the parent, have an ongoing discussion about how best to serve the children. And with our after-school program, we are currently serving 10 students, of which in this slide you can see that the 10 that we are serving this year are supported actually by 4 staff, meaning that we will have one school where we have 2 or 3 participants with health and special needs that one staff can support. In this slide, it indicates that in 2006, we had 2 participants. And just through word of mouth, and I think through a quality program, the inclusion services has become something that parents really need and they ask for. And we do our absolute best to make sure that we can accommodate every child that comes through the door. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Judith.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, good evening. My name is Judith McCaffrey, and I'm Recreation Manager with the Parks and Recreation Department. I'm pinch hitting tonight for Jeff Smith, our Recreation Supervisor that oversees our sports programs. He's spending some time with his family this week, so I'm going to highlight some of his accomplishments and what we're doing in the area of youth sports. I'll start out by saying that we do have free after-school sports programs, 3 different sports that we offer throughout the year in our 9 Santa Barbara School District elementary schools, and we served more than 800 youth last year in these programs. Of course, the public is also familiar with our fee-based youth sports programs. Those same free after-school sports we offer to schools outside the school district for a reasonable fee per child. So we do have a number of teams from other schools. And we also offer youth soccer leagues, t-ball clinics and leagues, and a very popular Kids Love Soccer clinic. And this just shows you here on the left for some of our free, the schools that are within the Santa Barbara School District and where we provide our free program on the left. And the other schools that are also participate by paying a reasonable fee of approximately $50 to $60 per child to participate in the program. Pretty exciting. Since our sports supervisor came on 4 years ago, we've actually increased the participation in these after-school sports programs by more than 81%. So they've become really, really popular, and a lot of youth are enjoying participating in them. We also see a great potential for growing, bringing in additional teams from other schools as the program becomes more popular. We just finished up a flag football league just this early fall, and gosh, we were so pleased. We increased our total players by 20% over the previous year. We increased our co-ed teams by 24%, with having 26 co-ed teams. It's great to see all the girls out there participating right along with the boys in flag football. And we also increased our teams by 19% in our free program. The highlight of the season is when the youth have a large tournament Friday night under the lights at Santa Barbara City College in their field, and then continue the competition through Saturday. It's a real highlight of the program. Now we're just finishing up the end of this month registration for Blacktop Basketball League. This is also free and fee-based teams, and they too, thanks to our joint use agreement with Santa Barbara City College, end their practice and game season with a championship tournament at the Santa Barbara City College Pavilion. Our registrations are looking good, and we have some participation numbers. These are participation numbers from last year, but you can see that last year we increased our participation by over 19% over the previous year. So, given the economy, and we're expecting a very strong participation again in our program this year, and actually anticipating that we'll see an increase. And then we have our after-school soccer league. We added this about 2 years ago, and it's in the spring. Again, the youth participate in a championship tournament at the end. I will say we couldn't do all of this if it weren't for all our wonderful coaches and officials that spend time training and learning to work with youth, many that come back year after year. And we also do have a number of very dedicated parents that volunteer for the program. So I want to thank them for helping make this program a great success. This last year we had 153 players. It was down from the previous year. And we really kind of attribute to the fact that we had a competing soccer program at the same time that was fee-based that we were promoting. And at the end of the year, we did make some budget cuts, and some of that included some of the salaries paid to our coaches and officials. But again, we are looking toward an increase of numbers this next year. Wanted to just say a few words about our after-school sports budget. And this is for the free program. As I mentioned earlier, since 2007, we've seen an 81% increase in registration and participation, and just this last year, a 13% increase. Our revenue, these are from the schools that are outside the school district, is approximately $6,000 each year. And our expenditure for the program, serving more than 800 youth, is $60,000, with the majority of that going to pay for our coaches and our officials, and then for supplies, equipment. Each school, the youth from each school get a T-shirt for the program, among other supplies. And then I also wanted to say that we're always looking for great coaches and officials. So if anyone was interested, we encourage them to call the sports office. And also my colleagues tonight, If we have some parents out there interested in some of our after-school programs, junior high, or inclusion services, we encourage them to contact our Youth Activities Office at 564-5495. As far as our sports programs, our number is 564-5422. Of course, you can always come visit us on our website that contains all sorts of information about our programs. We're now done with our presentation. If anyone would have some questions for us, we'd be happy to answer them.
Chair Wiscom and Commissioners, I would just like to remind you that it was the recommendation of this commission following the notable increase in youth violence when the commission was making recommendations to the City Council on where to put precious resources to make a difference. And this commission recommended that the City Council waive the use fees for the youth sports program. And here you can see the tremendous outcome from that. So when City Council agreed to underwrite the cost of that program in full for the people who are in the Santa Barbara school districts, because those are the city residents, we really saw that increase in participation. And I do have to concur with Judith's comment. Jeff Smith has done a tremendous job in growing this program. So it is a combination of the two things. But that is just a good example of, if we make it available and it's a good program, kids will participate. And I think that that's just a real important thing for us to remember as we continue to struggle with how do we keep kids engaged in positive activities.
Thank you for those comments. You're absolutely right, Ms. Rappin. Thanks for the excellent report. Ms. Brown, Ms. Coley, Ms. McCaffrey, you all did a great job. I have just two things I'd like to say. Number one, I have never seen a group give a presentation with smiles on your faces the whole time. It was incredible. I watched you guys. You just love what you do. It was it was so nice to see. And number two, I went to the Lights On After School celebration, and I got comments there from people that work with the program that say it would not be successful without the Parks and Recreation staff, and what a great job you all do. And obviously that's true in all the other programs that are here, just based on the participation numbers and the creative ideas. You're doing a lot of great stuff that's increasing participation. You've gotten 15 new participants in having 3 free days, and it's great to see, and thank you very much for all that. Mr. K-Spear?
One observation I had is the emphasis that you're placing on homework, incorporating that into part of AOK and RAP and all these after-school programs. I think it's just really important that these kids know the importance of academics, and this will pay dividends down the road. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Keep it up.
Anyone else?
I would just say, this is to me the heart of really what we do here, why we're sitting here. It truly is prevention. And I think, it's not only the youth violence issues that we face that are a threat to our children now. It's obesity and getting them out and moving. Sports isn't the answer for everything, but I think what we see in your after-school programming is you're going a lot of different directions with kids. But many kids don't have a chance to participate in fee-based programs. And I know when my kids were growing up, my daughter played flag football and my son played basketball with the program, and it was really gave them an opportunity to try things that we maybe could not have afforded them to try. They had to have, there had to be more of a commitment. But I think it's important for kids to just have more and more opportunities. So I really do appreciate it. The after-school programming, occasionally we'll hear comments that, well, what do we need that for? And, I don't think I can even begin to articulate all the reasons that we need the after-school programming and who you're serving. And in many cases, at the AOK schools, like you said, it is the children most in need. Their parents are working. They don't go home to support, not because their parents don't care, but because their parents are busy trying to put food on the table. So the opportunities that you give them to do their homework in a quiet environment so that when their parents do get to spend time with them, it's not beating them over the head trying to get something done at 7 o'clock at night. So this really goes out in a lot of ways to supporting families in our community. So thank you, and I know it's not always easy. I've been there at school and watched it, but I know over the years the program has gotten stronger and better every year. And thank you for that. Terry's been around since my kids were in school. And, it's been great to watch the programs develop over the years. So thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes it for us. We have one announcement, and that is the next regular meeting is Wednesday, January 26, 2011. And one more announcement is I would like to wish Parks and Recreation Department staff and fellow commissioners very happy holiday season.
Well, happy holidays to you.
And do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.